Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us tonight for our monthly tradition study with the Seattle Group and our Third Legacy Committee at Greater Seattle Intergroup. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Tradition 7 because it is the 7th month, and that's how we're going to do it. And so thanks for showing up and tuning in, and I'm going to turn it over to Stephen.
Well, thanks, Lara, and hello, everybody. I don't know if I'm on camera. Okay, hello. My name's Steve, and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Steve.
And okay, packed house tonight for this tradition, so I'll try and keep my comments brief so everybody has a chance to talk. Tradition 7, every AA group ought to be fully self-supporting, declining outside contributions. And those of us that have been in AA for a while, of course, we've heard that tradition 10,000 times or 1,000 times. And probably for most of us, we put the buck in, or maybe two, especially if somebody's looking at us, and call it good. But I had a little experience with Tradition 7 that I wanted to share. A while ago, because I just was paying attention to some financials from AA, I saw that maybe 2, 3, 4 months in a row, whatever I was paying attention to them, there were we were in arrears, and I think I saw that with GSO, with our Area 72, District 15. So I think we were pretty good then, except real close to the break-even point, and for sure with Intergroup. And I've heard that these different parts of AA, for years, they just like somehow operate with less than enough and somehow make it through. And my solution, which I thought was a pretty good one, everybody else should start donating more. And if everybody else donated more, AA would be fine. And then, of course, I got, well, why don't I? And I thought, well, I put my buck or two, and or more sometimes, and I go to a decent amount of meetings, so my contributions should be fine with me. But how can they be if we're not self-supporting? If the different parts of AA can't run in the black, then by definition, we're not self-supporting. And then I noticed, and I've said it and meant it too. People say, "Oh, AA saved my life. It's the most important thing in my life." Or if it wasn't for AA, I'd be dead or in jail or whatever. And then I said, "Well, what? How about kicking in some money?" Well, maybe it wasn't all that important after all. But in AA, talking about money, I just want to read a line right now out of the 12 and 12 in Tradition 7. And in talking about money, Bill wrote, "We were astounded to find that we were as tight as the bark on a tree." And if anybody wants to look that up, it's on page 161. Just, that's such a great image. And I've had those thoughts plenty of times in AA, like, I don't want to give more money. They should just spend it more wisely. Plus, I want more services. But the part of Tradition 7 I wanted to talk about is, in a way, how dare we say we're self-supporting if we're not? Because we either are or we aren't. And if we're not, why aren't we? I mean, it's one of our traditions. AA, whether it's been running in the red for a while or in the black or in between, it was there for us, every one of us. And do we have a responsibility to see that it's there for somebody else? And in the, again, in the 12 and 12, Bill wrote, we had to recognize the fact that AA had to function. And I don't think anybody will disagree with that. AA has to function. And if it's through our voluntary contributions, what can we do about it? Because the way things are today, and hopefully they'll change real soon, we're not self-supporting. We're not running in the red. And I know that's true at the intergroup level. At our district level, we're okay. But Lara, do you know about area and GSO?
GSO has been in the red for a long time.
Oh, okay, so there's the governing body of Alcoholics Anonymous, and we're not supporting it. We're not self-supporting. And so I came up with a solution that would solve the problem. That's everybody else donate more. But what can we do? What can I do? So I turned it inward. In fact, I beat my sponsor to it. I turned it inward. And one thing I did, and actually it's been a couple of years ago, but I didn't know it was possible until somebody told me. I have a donation I make to Intergroup that comes off my credit card every month. I didn't know that was even available. And something else I'm going to do, I'm GSR of my home group. And because I've done this before at another group, if we announced the condition of our treasury, and I'm not talking about a forensic accounting thing, just a simple thing at a meeting. Here's the money we've got so far that's going to be available for distribution, $18 or $118. Just by making that simple announcement, as is strongly suggested in our AA pamphlet, the group treasurer, the name of it is the group treasurer, right?
Yeah.
It encourages us to be self-supporting. And I was amazed at how blind I was to the idea of self-support, because in my mind, if I put in a couple of bucks, that's my part. But if everybody thinks that way, it won't support AA as a whole. And so I think as an individual member of AA, one, we can ask that our groups, we can be informed of what our groups does with the money. We can ask at a business meeting or a group inventory, are we running our group in a way that we can support AA as a whole? And if we're not, maybe we shouldn't even have a group. Maybe we should be part of another group that does. I mean, a lot of different ways to look at it. But AA traditionally is supposed to be self-supporting. And if it's not, there are things that as an individual we can do about it. And that's kind of what I had to say about that for now.
Thanks, Stephen.
Cindy.
Thank you. Well, I'm Cindy. I'm an alcoholic.
Hey, Cindy.
Hi, Cindy.
And thank you for being here.
Well, I'm new to all this in the last couple of years, and so I had no clue that we were running the red.
Oh, I'd say most people don't.
Yeah, and so want to say that I would speak tonight on Tradition 7, and the fact that I just became the treasurer of a group, it was kind of fortuitous that it all came together at the same time. And I've learned so much in the last couple of years. I feel like AA has given me a life. And that in that life, I have like a pinhole of I can see through a pinhole of what's actually out there. And through these tradition studies and coming to intergroup and doing the things that I've done, I feel like I've kind of wiggled that pin around, and so I get to see a little bit more. And I really appreciate. I'm learning so much, and it makes me see things differently. So when I first started in AA, I could barely walk across the room. So actually being able to see a basket was crazy. I couldn't even see it. And over time and watching it go around, and I finally noticed it. I mean, it was a gradual process, and started adding my money to it. And now I'm starting to understand what that's all about. That it's that I can put my money in it. That before I couldn't, and now I can. And it's the responsibility I have, the responsibility of being a member in AA, and of, like you say, buying coffee and I didn't realize that you had to pay for the chairs until I had to set the chairs up. But I didn't realize that somebody bought the coffee until I was making coffee and the person was bringing it in. So it's kind of like a realization over time, and that has continued. So becoming a treasurer and seeing where the money goes, that it goes to the coffee and the rent and to the greater AA. I definitely need to learn more about the greater parts of AA that, like you also said, was here for me when I showed up, and I want to make sure that it's here for other people when they show up. And it's kind of the big thing that I got out of studying for this is my responsibility. I have a responsibility to the people that come after me to make sure that it is at least what I experienced when I came in. And the spirituality of giving your money away, that's as much a gift for me as other people, the the people that come after me. Also, that power of being self-supporting, meaning that we have the power to make our own decisions about how AA is structured, and that we're not giving that power away to big donors. And if we all are little donors, it works. So yeah, to, like you were saying, also to do some self-reflection. It's made me do some self-reflection on what more can I do. And I also want to say that one of the things that I have done as a job is sell raffle tickets. And one of the beautiful things that I've seen is how generous people in AA are. Yeah, they're buying raffle tickets and everybody's buying the winning one for sure. But everyone is really generous. And I've seen also when people get the prize of 50-50, get 50% of the pot, that they give it back to AA. That's pretty remarkable. So those are the things I've learned. And there's a couple things that I didn't know, that if I was totally had a ton of money, that I couldn't give more than $5,000 to the GSO. Couldn't do it because not allowed, at least in the pamphlet. And also in my will, I can only give a 5,000. Oh, it's 10,000.
We upped it for you.
Oh, okay. $10,000 donation one time, not in perpetuity. That's what I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy.
Oh, thanks, Cindy. You know, last Friday, Nancy and I were going to Ellensburg and we stopped at a Starbucks. And for a special treat, I got a 16-ounce chocolate mocha. And the price of it was $7.03. And so I gave the girl $8 and I thought I'm never going to Starbucks again because I'm gonna pay $7 for a damn cup of coffee, except it was $8. And on my way out, I was thinking, I don't think in almost 38 years I've ever given $8 at a meeting. I've given 20 before and 10 and 5 and one a whole bunch of times, but I don't think I've ever given $8 at a meeting. And I just did that for a cup of coffee.
Oh, that's
And I thought there's something seriously wrong with me. That echoed with what other people have said. Okay, we're not too strict on crosstalk here. So, Lara?
Yeah, my name is Lara. I'm an alcoholic. Well, yes. I mean, I can speak to this from a Seattle Intergroup perspective, and I guess I never really. I've always belonged to home groups that did a split and sent 50% to Intergroup and area district and GSO respectively, but it wasn't a of course when I became more involved with Intergroup, I became more intimately aware of exactly what the money goes for and what the money is spent on and how important it is to have an intergroup office or a central office, because that is the entity that takes care of local issues and local contacts and local groups, and whereas GSO handles while they serve, they're here to serve the groups, they deal with things on a grander scale, where intergroups can more readily meet the needs of the local groups and the local call for help. Can you imagine if the only place to call was New York and you were drunk in Seattle, and how long would it take to find somebody to come help you? It's impractical. So Seattle Intergroup is important, and it's important to me. It's important to AA here in the Seattle area for a myriad of reasons. I did want to say, in the language of the heart, Bill Wilson, that is where, the language of the heart is the Grapevine writings, Bill Wilson's Grapevine writings. And that is where Bill Wilson first wrote about the traditions before they were accepted in 1950 at the International Conference. So this one he wrote in 1948. Most of them were written in 1948. And the last paragraph of this essay that he wrote about Tradition 7 is that when reflecting on these things, why should not each of us tell himself, yes, we AAs once were a burden on everybody. We were takers. Now that we are sober and by the grace of God have become responsible citizens of the world, why shouldn't we now about face and become thankful givers? Yes, it is high time we did. That really is, that's a good principle, that we are self-supporting through our own contributions, that we can give what we have been freely given. And that it does say that in that pamphlet where spirituality and money mix is in the hat, right? In the basket. That's where money meets our spiritual objective of the spiritual principles that we try to live up to, that are contained in these, the steps and traditions and concepts. And so by giving money to Alcoholics Anonymous, we're able to achieve our spiritual aim. Another really great resource for the traditions is this tradition checklist, which is also printed by the Grapevine. The Grapevine readings are an awesome resource for traditions. There's also a Grapevine book called Our 12 Traditions. But the first question for this tradition checklist for tradition 7 is, honestly now, do I do all I can to help my AA group, my central office, my GSO remain self-supporting? Could I put a little more into the basket on behalf of the new person who can't afford it yet? How generous was I when I was drunk in a bar room? Sobering up at 17, I didn't have much chance to be generous in a bar room, but I'm keenly aware that if it wasn't literally for Alcoholics Anonymous, I would not have a job because I at least this job, right? And so I very often, it doesn't matter, but I very often put in more than the recommended $1 or $2. The next question is, how do I or my group support our international journals of Alcoholics Anonymous, Grapevine and Lavinia? That's another way to support Alcoholics Anonymous. Grapevine is a line item on the AAWS or the GS General Service Board budget every year, and that is a way to support AA, is to subscribe to the Grapevine. And one thing I can tell you about the Grapevine is that another way is, if you don't want to read the Grapevine, or maybe you already have a subscription to the Grapevine, I like to buy subscriptions to my sponsees, for my sponsees as sobriety gifts or Christmas or whatever. So I renew their subscription every year. There's also another way to, is that GSO has a list of people that, inmates that would love subscriptions to the Grapevine, and you can buy a gift of the Grapevine, and they will send it to an inmate. And that's another really great way to support the Grapevine, and then inline GSB, General Service Board. If GSO runs short of funds some year, would it be okay to let the government subsidize AA groups in hospitals and prisons? And of course, the answer would be no. And that even if we run short, the AA message still needs to continue to be carried, which is why General Service Board has had to dig into their prudent reserve for the last few years. They're now in the process of building up their prudent reserve. But they'd like to have it at about between 9 and 12 months of a prudent reserve, and we're only at about 6 months prudent reserve right now. Seattle Intergroup has run in the red to the tune of about $5,000 for the last 3 months, and for the year we're behind about $17,000 in the red. So Steve alluded to how you can support Seattle Intergroup by becoming a sustainer, which is a way that you can just, $5, $10, $20, some even do $50 or $100 a month if you can afford that every month. It is a way that Seattle Intergroup can, and you can also do this for GSO, become a sustainer for GSO. And you can, every month. It's a predictable income that we can rely on. We know that every month we're going to be getting at least $1,500 from our sustainers, and that's great. It does cost about $10,000 a month to operate Greater Seattle Intergroup. So more sustainers would be awesome. You can also, there's the birthday club. So that's one way to support Seattle Intergroup. But every year that you've been sober, send $1 into Greater Seattle Intergroup, So like Stephen and I have birthdays next month in August, and I've already signed up for my birthday club because I know I want to get my name in the high and dry for August. So I would recommend if you want your name.
I
In
asked
the
you
high
last
and dry.
Wednesday and you
Okay.
told me later.
Oh, no, do it tomorrow.
Okay.
And you can do the same for GSO. They have a birthday club, right? That you can give to GSO $1 a year for every year that you've been sober. And I did want to say that just recently this year, the advisory action, the General Service Conference, did pass the motion to increase the individual contribution, annual contribution from a member to $7,500 a year. The bequests are still $10,000, a one-time donation upon death. But the annual contribution has been raised to $7,500 for the year, which is also true of Seattle Intergroup. So if you can donate $7,500 a year to Seattle Intergroup and then $7,500 a year to General Service Board, because they're two separate nonprofit entities. So that being said, I'll stop blowing my trumpet, but I love Seattle Intergroup, and I love the 7th tradition, and it's important. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Lara, for all that information. And I'm just wondering what it would be like if at our meetings when somebody reads how it works and then somebody reads the traditions, and we get to 7th tradition, and it's we ought to be self-supporting, but we're not. if that would change anything.
Yeah.
So would love to hear if anybody else has any comments or anything to say about it. I can't see the name, but I see we have a soon-to-be Seahawk fan, hopefully.
Oh my gosh, he's got a Packers shirt.
I just can't see the name, Lara.
Yeah.
I'm Mike. I'm an alcoholic.
Oh, hey, Mike.
Yeah. Hi. Yeah, wrong shirt for the area, I guess, but oh well. I'm from Wisconsin, but I'm from actually District 10 here in on the other side of the water, Bremerton area. I got in here late. Sorry about that. I was actually on the phone and all that kind of stuff. We just had our DCM pass away, so I am the alt DCM, so I'm kind of taking over DCM until we do some figuring out. At the end of August, we're going to have our voting. I was planning on raising my hand anyway, but I want it to be known that anybody that's in our district that is, what do you call it, available, that they can also be part of it too. But tradition 7 has to do with money. We always get arguments with money. And I like the movie It's a Wonderful Life, when Clarence the angel talks about there's no money in heaven, and what's his name, Bailey, came back with that phrase, well, it sure comes in handy down here, bub. And I get a kick out of it every time we have arguments about, what are we going to do with leftover money? What are we going to do with this and that? And it's like, AA is meant to be broke because we tend to want more and more things if we have the money for it. And I like how Bill W. I don't know how it was worded, but he pretty much said, our society is meant to not have a whole lot of money. And I can relate to that because spirituality is our program, not money. And the more I'm in AA, the more I see that. And we still do argue about money. It seems like that is a power in itself. But I'm glad it's a spiritual program, and we just have to learn where that kind of division is, because we need money in order for our program to actually work. We need books so we can sell the books so that we can then get the money back so we can make more books. You know, and that's the way it is. Every district, every group, every area has its own way of how to deal with money. I know we've got a situation in Area 72 right now where they're trying to figure out what to do with that leftover money after an assembly. We're going to talk about it a little bit at the assembly and then probably at the quarterly again. And we always have talks about money. At the end of the year, we try to figure out what we're going to do with all the leftover, what we're going to do with, you know, our budget. Some groups have budgets, some districts have budgets, some don't. And you know, it's all each an individual way of doing things. That's what's nice about it too, the autonomy of each group, each district in each area. So I don't know, I'm sorry that I was late, but I try to come to these meetings. It's every once in a while. I noticed I put it in my phone tonight, or I had it on my phone, and I thought, you know, I got to get to one of these meetings again because you guys hold some good meetings too. I like doing the steps studies, the tradition studies, and the concept studies too. Concepts as well. Those are things I got to go to meetings on because it's very hard to understand. But the more I get involved in service work, I'm not just learning about the concepts, I'm doing it. And I think that for me is something that I gotta have to do. I'm not a book smart kind of person. I like learning by doing, and the more I go to area assemblies and quarterlies and stuff like that, I'm learning more about the traditions and the concepts in itself. I'm learning that. So glad I'm here. That's all I got. Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. And sorry to hear about your DCM and how fortunate for District 10 to have you as an alternate. And thanks for joining us tonight. And Nancy?
Thanks. I'm Nancy and I'm an alcoholic. And I was going to say the same thing, Mike. Thank you for your service and stepping up to be the DCM in the interim. Thank you, everyone, for what you shared tonight. It was inspiring, I think, so useful and encouraging in how important it is to be a regular, you know, sustaining member, even if it's just putting money in the hat. But I think the whole idea of being a sustainer is just great. Because, you know, as been pointed out, I'll just say a couple things from the Tradition 7 and the 12 and 12. It said, you know, we had to recognize the fact that AA had to function. Meeting places cost something. And to save whole areas from turmoil, small offices had to be set up, telephones installed, and a few full-time secretaries hired. Over many protests, these things were accomplished. We saw that if they weren't, the man coming in the door couldn't get a break. And as you pointed out, Larry, it would be ludicrous if New York was the only office, and you know, what would that mean for many people who can pick up a phone in their own time zone in their own city. So I love this. It says, because we are, you know, self-supporting, and even though we might be in the red, I feel like we're still self-supporting because we don't have anybody else supporting us, right? There's no outside source that is supporting us, even though we may be in the red, which hopefully can be righted. And if, because we don't take money from outside sources, therefore we're not in danger of being influenced by those outside sources. We don't have lobbyists that are, you know, steering things in a certain direction, and that because of that, we can govern ourselves. This idea of in the 12 and 12, it says, if the AA Foundation obtained money from outside sources, its trustees might be tempted to run things without reference to the wishes of AA as a whole. Relieved of responsibility, every alcoholic would shrug and say, oh, the foundation is wealthy. Why should I bother? The pressure of that fat treasury would surely tempt the board to invent all kinds of schemes to do good with such funds, and so divert AA from its primary purpose. So I think, Mike, as you pointed out, somewhere in here, Bill says, we are, that principle is corporate poverty, that AA was to remain poor, not bankrupt, but poor. And at least in that regard, it's rich in every other area. And it says they pointed out that the irresponsible had become responsible, and that by making financial independence part of its tradition, Alcoholics Anonymous had revived an ideal that its era had almost forgotten, which is being self-supporting. And I think it is such a beautiful principle and tradition that, it makes me really want to see some meetings, some groups do talk about a tradition. They have a tradition topic once a month, which I think, since we've been doing these, is so important, because unless we talk and discuss these with each other, with the people that come to our meetings, I think that's the way that the message gets put out. I don't want to be like, oh, mom and dad will pay for it. It's not like that. We are all responsible, to help with the mission of AA. So I'm done.
Oh, thank you, Nancy. And Lyra, I can't see.
Bernice.
Bernice, welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you again, family. My name is Bernice and I am an alcoholic. And thank you everybody for your readings and everything. I've got all my books out next to me. I've got my 12 and 12 and my pamphlet and my language of the heart. And I'm just highlighting and writing and everything. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity to learn, especially about Tradition 7, because I keep it simple with, when I go to a meeting, I put something in the hat or the can or the basket. But since I've been doing Zoom meetings lately, I have not been doing that. And so I've been conscientiously now called to the carpet that I need to do something about that situation and rectify that situation. So I am so very grateful, Lara, that you talked about being a sustainer, and also talking about the birthday club in the High and Dry, which I had forgotten about. My birthday is in October, and I will be able to give $18 at that time. God said the same. So I will definitely look forward to doing that. And as far as being a sustainer, also with regard to the intergroup, is there a minimum amount? And the only reason I ask about minimum is because my finances currently have me in that position to have to ask about a minimum. Hopefully my finances will expand at some point in the future. But with regard to being a sustainer to the intergroup, is there a minimum monthly amount that is suggested?
So we have $5 is typically the starting point.
Okay.
So we have many people that donate just $5 a month.
Okay. Okay.
Because that is usually that's attached to a credit card, that equals like $4.63 or something to intergroup. So which is fine, but just to let you know that.
Okay, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And also, I'm very old school, so you accept money orders?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So if I send a money order to the intergroup, I would make it out to GS
IG.
Oh, GSI, GSIG.
GSIG. Mhm.
Okay, all right. Thank you for that. And I'm going to keep on listening because I'm going to keep on learning.
Thanks, Bernice. I did want to just say there is this really great pamphlet where money and spirituality mix. And at the end of that pamphlet, or maybe it's towards the middle, I actually haven't read this, so this is interesting. One of the questions is, how much does it cost per group for GSO to supply basic services? And the answer is, at the end of 2023, the annual cost of services per group was $162.72, while the average contribution per group was $140.09. So that it talks about what, where the shortfall between the two figures, where the shortfall is. And then it says that the shortfall is made up from income from AA publications, which AAWS has had to raise the literature prices last year. They had to do that. So I thought that was interesting to make sure that our group is contributing at least $162 a year to GSO would be really great. So that's cool. Or more.
Well, thank you, Lara. And they say that good meetings start on time and end on time, but maybe great meetings end a little bit early.
That's funny, Stephen.
Yeah, nobody laughed. Oh,
We
got
are.
more from
All right.
Mike.
I have
Mike
one
had his
thing.
hand up.
I saw an email from our treasurer, Derek. This was about 10 days ago, it says. That was when he was at the Pacific Regional Forum. And it shows that there was a Class A trustee, Kevin Pryor was there. And it says that our contribution challenge per member for 2024 is $6.43 per member. That is hypothetically, if each member contributes $6.43, we would break even. Kevin also mentioned that we would bring it back. So I expect next year we'll have a similar number. So if we contribute, it's kind of crazy how only $6.43 per year per member, we would break even on all of that stuff that GSO does there in New York. It's baffling. But then, you think about it, and then who would really do that? I haven't yet done it myself, but it's like, okay, now I know how much I have to send to them. Do I? That's just it. It's odd. That's all I have. I'm sorry.
That's great. Thank you. And I think as individual members of a home group, and particularly if we hold a position in the home group, is we have the ability to hold our home group accountable, whether we donate or not.
Yeah.
And I think just from the home groups in the years that I've been around, most of the time it's never even talked about.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting if, as a group, we stated to the group members, hey, we don't donate, or we do donate, and,
Yeah.
here's how we do it. So I think just communication about money, which, like you said, nobody likes to talk about, but just communication about it can go a long ways. I didn't know about that $6 thing.
Hmm.
That's pretty cool. So we have an exciting time lined up for next month on the
Sorry.
That's all right.
It's going to be August 27th.
August 27th, and hope everybody can make it then. And thank you again for showing up tonight and for your input, Lara and Cindy and Nancy and Mike and Bernice. And I can't even name everybody else.
Yeah.
And so maybe it'd be appropriate to end with responsibility prayer. Who's responsible?
I am
I am
responsible.
responsible
When
when
Anywhere,
anyone, anywhere
reaches
reaches
out
out for help.
I
I want the hand of AA always to be there.
And for
And for
that,
that, I am responsible.
and Mike, we'll see you in October, if not before.
Hopefully, yes, yes, you will. Okay. You guys
Thanks
have
for
a
the
good night.
study, everyone.